I walked into what should have been a warm family home on Thanksgiving. Instead, I found a dying man in a rocking chair and a note that shattered everything. 4 days later, my husband was on his knees begging. But by then, it was way too late. The note was brutal: gone on Caribbean cruise with Hannah. Mom's coming too. You'll take care of Victor. Back Monday. Brady. Behind me, a gravelly voice cut through my shock. He's not coming back until Monday, is he? Victor, Brady's stepfather, stood in the doorway. His eyes were sharp. Alert. Nothing like the confused old man Brady always described. No, I whispered. Nobody's coming back. I'd driven 3 hours with homemade pies and Thanksgiving gifts. And my husband? He'd abandoned his dying stepfather to party on a cruise ship with his coworker Hannah, the one he swore was just a colleague. I opened Instagram with shaking hands. There it was, Brady on a cruise ship deck, arm wrapped around Hannah, champagne glasses raised. The caption? New beginnings. Caribbean getaway with family. Family. Posted 2 days ago. Which meant this wasn't last minute. They had been planning this while I was baking pies for a Thanksgiving that was never going to happen. Find something interesting? Victor asked. I turned my phone toward him. They're on a cruise. With Hannah. Victor's expression didn't change. Hannah's been in the picture for 3 months. She calls here all the time. Pretty voice. Terrible laugh. My stomach dropped. You knew? I know a lot of things they don't think I notice. He tapped his temple. Mine's still sharp, despite what Brady tells everyone. I checked our bank account. My heart stopped. 3 days ago, $5,200 withdrawal. Our entire savings. The money for our house down payment. He'd taken everything. They've been doing the same to me for years, Victor said quietly. Taking a little here, a little there. Meanwhile, the heat's turned down to save money, my medications get delayed, and Elaine buys another designer purse. Something inside me hardened into steel. We deserve better than this, I said, grabbing my coat. I'm going to the store. We're having a proper Thanksgiving. Victor looked surprised, then something like respect flickered across his face. Haven't had a home-cooked meal in months. When I got back, Victor had cleared the counter. But he'd also laid out something else, a stack of papers. What's all this? Evidence. His blue eyes turned steely. Bank statements. Medical records. Documented neglect. I've been keeping track for months. He pushed a folder toward me. Inside were detailed notes, suspicious transfers, medical recommendations that had been completely ignored. Why are you showing me this? Victor leaned forward, suddenly looking less frail and more dangerous. Because you've been wrong too, Jade. And because I don't have much time left. He tapped a medical report. Terminal pancreatic cancer. 2, maybe 3 months. I'm so sorry, Victor. He waved away my sympathy. Don't be sorry. Be smart. His gaze intensified. They think they've left you with a burden. But they've actually given us an opportunity. Opportunity for what? Victor's thin lips curved into a smile. For justice. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside is my real will. Not the one Brady and Elaine think exists. He laid out his proposition: help him document the neglect, assist with his final arrangements, and he'd ensure I was taken care of financially. The family who abandoned us both would lose everything. I stared at this man I barely knew. We'd both been deceived by the same people. Yes, I said, surprising myself with how firm my voice sounded. Let's begin. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, drop a 3 in the comments right now. Over the next 3 days, Victor and I became unlikely partners. First, we documented everything. Years of financial exploitation. Medications diluted or skipped. Appointments cancelled because they were too expensive. But we needed more than paper evidence. We need to establish a narrative, I told Victor. They need to think you're declining rapidly. Victor's attorney Patricia helped us stage his bedroom like intensive home care. Oxygen tanks, for stands, monitoring equipment. Then came the photos. I positioned lighting to deepen the hollows in Victor's face. With minimal theatrical makeup, he suddenly looked like he was actively dying. Perfect, he said, reviewing the images. Who's our target? Brady's sister Melissa. She's the only one who's texted to check on you. I crafted a message. Victor had a difficult night. Fever spiked to 102. Managing his pain as best I can. Melissa replied within minutes. Oh no. Poor Uncle Victor. Keep me posted. Hook set, Victor murmured. I started calling Brady's phone. He never answered, but I left increasingly panicked voicemails. Each one carefully recorded. Each one painting a picture of a devoted wife struggling alone. Then the neighbors started visiting. Mrs. Peterson brought a casserole and information. Been watching that family for years. The way they treat that poor man. By the time she left, she'd promised to spread the word. Victor needed support while his family selfishly vacationed. Over 2 days, 5 more neighbors visited. Each with stories of witnessing Brady's neglect. Each visit strengthened our case. On Saturday, Patricia returned with final documents. At Victor's bank, he officially transferred control of his hidden assets his family knew nothing about, into trusts benefiting me and elder care charities. Your stepson was in last week, the manager mentioned, asking about your accounts. Victor smiled thinly. Always planning ahead, that boy. That evening, Melissa video called. We arranged Victor in bed, surrounded by medical equipment, oxygen cannula in his nostrils. When I answered, Melissa gasped. Jade, you look terrible. I turned the phone toward Victor, who gave an Oscar-worthy performance, breathing labored, eyes fluttering weakly. Uncle Victor? Can you hear me? Melissa, he whispered. That you, sweetheart? Should we come home early? Is he going to make it until Monday? I turned the camera back. It's hard to say. The hospice nurse thinks his systems are shutting down. Let me talk to Brady and Mom. The thing is, these tickets were non-refundable, and Mom's been so stressed lately. I nodded understandingly while fighting back disgust. Of course. It's just that Victor keeps asking for Brady. I'll tell him to call, Melissa promised. After ending the call, Victor removed the oxygen cannula. Did you record that? I held up my other phone. Every word. But then something unexpected happened. Sunday morning, Victor's hands were trembling more than usual. A bluish tint appeared around his lips. You're really not feeling well, are you? Victor's smile was thin. Ironic, isn't it? After all our play acting, the real thing sneaks up on us. The hospice nurse confirmed what I feared. Victor was actively dying. Hours, maybe a day at most. Our revenge scheme suddenly felt secondary to ensuring his comfort and dignity. What would you like for breakfast? Fresh peaches with cream, he said. My late wife Martha used to make them every Sunday morning. I drove to 3 stores before finding decent peaches in November. When I prepared them, Victor's eyes misted over. Just like she used to make. Nobody's bothered to remember such things about me in years. Throughout that day, I cared for Victor not for our plan, but because it was right. Adjusting his pillows. Reading from his Raymond Chandler novel. Playing the classical music he loved. I haven't been treated with such kindness since Martha died 12 years ago, Victor said. Strange how a stranger has shown me more compassion than my own family. That evening, Patricia arrived with a notary. Victor was remarkably alert, summoning his remaining strength. He recorded a video testimony, 20 minutes of calm, devastating detail about years of neglect. Jade showed me more dignity in 4 days than my family did in 4 years, he stated clearly. She is the only one who earned the right to benefit from what I spent a lifetime building. By evening, Victor's energy was fading. At his request, I helped him to his chair by the window. We shared a bottle of port he and Martha had been saving for their 50th anniversary. To justice, Victor said, raising his glass with effort. To dignity, I added. We sat together as darkness fell. Victor spoke about Martha, about his career, about trips they'd planned but never taken. Not once did he mention Brady or his mother. Around midnight, his breathing changed. I set my book aside and held his hand. There was no drama. Victor simply slipped away, his hand growing cool in mine. For a long moment, I sat motionless, tears streaming down my face. This man I'd known for only 4 days had become profoundly important to me. At dawn, I called the hospice nurse. Then the funeral home. And then I prepared for Brady's return. I arranged everything with surgical precision. Victor's letter propped against the family photo. Folders of evidence laid out. His video testimony queued up on the television. Beside my packed suitcase, I placed printouts of the crew's photos, contrasting their poolside cocktails with Victor's documented decline. Monday noon, I heard car doors slamming. Laughter. The front door burst open. Brady entered first, sunburned and smiling, arms laden with shopping bags. Honey, we're home. Then he saw me. His smile died. What's with the funeral getup? Victor passed away Saturday night, I said quietly. The shopping bags hit the floor. The funeral was yesterday afternoon. Many of your neighbors attended. Quite a lovely turnout, actually. Brady's face cycled through shock, disbelief, then calculation. You held the funeral without us? You were invited. I left multiple messages. You chose not to respond. We need to sit down, Brady sputtered. Yes, I agreed. We do. I picked up Victor's letter. He left this to be read to you. Did he change his will? Elaine interrupted bluntly. I read Victor's letter aloud. His disappointment flowed through my voice. The holidays spent alone. The appointments cancelled. The overheard comments about waiting for the old man to die. Heavy silence filled the room. Dad was confused, Brady finally said. His medication. Victor was perfectly lucid. In fact, he made a video statement you might want to see. I led them to the dining room where I'd arranged the evidence files. Brady's eyes widened. I opened folders revealing bank statements with highlighted transfers, timelines, statements from 6 neighbors. And then there's this. I pressed play. Victor's video testimony began, his calm, articulate description of years of mistreatment. Brady's face grew increasingly pale. This is a setup, he sputtered. She manipulated a dying man. The doorbell rang. Patricia stood on the doorstep with her notary. Am I interrupting? Not at all. The family just returned. Patricia placed her briefcase on the table and removed documents. As executor of Victor Harmon's estate, I'm here to inform you of his final will and testament. Brady straightened, a smug smile forming. Victor Harmon has left the entirety of his estate to Jade Mitchell, with provisions for substantial donations to elder abuse prevention organizations. The stunned silence was broken by Elaine's shrill voice. That's impossible. The will explicitly cites abandonment and neglect as reasons for disinheritance, Patricia said calmly. It's been properly witnessed, notarized, and filed. 2 physicians certified his mental competence. We'll contest it, Brady said. You're welcome to try. However, given the extensive documentation, video testimony, and witness statements, I'd advise against it. You'd only be spending money you don't have. What do you mean, money we don't have? Elaine demanded. Patricia glanced at me. The properties you occupy belong to the Harmon Family Trust, now under Jade's control. The investment accounts you've been drawing from are frozen pending audit for financial abuse. Brady's face drained of color. That's not possible. The house is mine. Dad promised. Victor promised nothing, I interjected. You assumed. There's a difference. The implications were sinking in. Brady had blown our savings on the cruise, counting on his inheritance to cover their debts. The house wasn't his to sell or borrow against. What about our college funds? Melissa asked in a small voice. Grandpa set those up. Brady couldn't meet his sister's eyes. Patricia answered gently. Victor provided funds to your father for that purpose years ago. However, those accounts were never established. Melissa turned to Brady, horror dawning. You spend our college money? The family erupted into accusations. Hannah quietly slipped out the front door. I let the chaos continue before stepping away to retrieve my suitcase. Brady followed me into the hallway, his demeanor completely transformed. Jade, please, he begged. We can work this out. I made a mistake with Hannah. It didn't mean anything. We can start over. I'll change. I promise. I looked at this man I'd once loved, seeing him clearly for the first time. Calmly, I removed my wedding ring and placed it in his palm, followed by the keys to our apartment. You left him to die alone, I said quietly. Now you get nothing. Including me. I walked toward the door. Brady's pleas turned to threats. You won't get away with this. I'll fight it in court. At the doorway, I turned back. Everything was done legally. You taught me one valuable lesson, Brady, always keep receipts. I stepped outside into the bright November sunshine. Behind me, I could hear Brady's protests and Elaine's angry voice. But those voices were already fading. Mrs. Peterson appeared on her porch. She gave me a knowing nod and a small wave. I waved back, feeling a surprising lightness. Victor's final gift wasn't just financial security. The true gift was the clarity and strength I'd found while helping him find justice. 3 months later, I stood in the office of the newly established Victor Harmon Foundation for Elder Care Advocacy. Patricia had helped me structure everything. Half of Victor's estate went into the foundation, funding for elder abuse investigations, legal support for victims, and education programs. The other half gave me something I'd never had, true independence. I'd moved into a beautiful apartment downtown. Restarted my graphic design business. Reconnected with friends I'd lost during my marriage. My phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. Can we talk? I'm so sorry about everything. I had no idea what Dad and Mom were really like. I stared at the message for a long moment. Melissa had been complicit, yes. But she'd also been manipulated her entire life. I typed back, coffee next week? Some bridges could be rebuilt. Others needed to stay burned. Brady, I'd heard, was living in his mother's basement. The house they'd occupied had been sold, with proceeds going to the foundation. Their legal challenges had gone nowhere. The evidence was too overwhelming. Hannah had moved on to another colleague. Some patterns never change. But here's what nobody tells you about getting justice: it doesn't erase the pain. It doesn't undo the betrayal. What it does do is give you back your power. Your dignity. I thought about Victor often. About those 4 days that changed everything. About fresh peaches with cream and 50-year-old port. You know what the strangest part is? He'd said that last night. These past few days with you have been better than months with them. The Foundation's first case came through the following week, an elderly woman whose son was systematically draining her accounts. Thank you, she said after our first meeting, tears in her eyes. I thought nobody would believe me. I believe you, I said simply. And we're going to make this right. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from Brady. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. Jade, it's me. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I've been in therapy. Really working on myself. I see now how I treated you, how I treated Dad. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I'm not asking for forgiveness or money or anything. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About all of it. His voice cracked. You deserved so much better. And Dad. God, Dad deserved better too. I live with that every day now. The message ended. I sat with it for a moment. Part of me felt satisfaction. Part of me felt sadness. But mostly, I felt free. I deleted the voicemail. Some apologies come too late. Some bridges burn for a reason. And that's okay. 6 months after Victor's death, the foundation held its first fundraiser. Local news covered it. Several families shared their stories. During my speech, I talked about Victor. Not about the revenge or the inheritance, but about the man himself. His love for Raymond Chandler novels. His meticulous record-keeping. His dry sense of humor. Victor Harmon taught me that dignity isn't something that can be taken from you, I said to the crowd. It's something you claim for yourself, even in your darkest moments. Especially in your darkest moments. After the event, an older gentleman approached me. I knew Victor. Worked with him at the bank 30 years ago. He was a good man. Would have been proud of what you're doing. I hope so, I said softly. He would be, the man assured me. Victor always said the measure of a person isn't how they treat those who can help them, but how they treat those who can't. You understood that. His family never did. That night, alone in my apartment, I poured myself a small glass of port, not Victor's vintage, but a decent one. I raised it to his photo on my bookshelf. To second chances, I said quietly. And to making sure others get them too. The next morning, I woke with renewed purpose. 3 new cases had come into the foundation overnight. An 80-year-old veteran whose daughter was forging checks. A widow whose stepchildren were trying to declare her incompetent. A retired teacher whose caregiver was stealing her medications. Each story was different. Each one was heartbreaking. And each one was now going to get the help they deserved. I thought about that Thanksgiving morning, walking into an empty house with a note that shattered my world. How lost I'd felt. How betrayed. But that betrayal had led me here. To purpose. To strength. To a life built on my own terms. Victor had asked me that first day, shall we begin? We had begun something that day. Not just revenge, but transformation. Not just justice, but healing. And now, every day, I got to help others begin their own journeys from victim to survivor. From abandoned to empowered. Some people spend their whole lives searching for their purpose. Mine found me in the most unexpected way, in 4 days, with a dying man who refused to go quietly, who chose dignity over bitterness, and who gave me the tools to reclaim my own life. On what would have been Victor's 79th birthday, I visited his grave. The headstone was simple, elegant, Victor Harmon. Beloved husband of Martha. A man of dignity and purpose. I placed fresh peaches at the base, a private joke he would have appreciated. We're helping a lot of people, Victor, I said quietly. 23 families so far. The foundation is growing. Your story is making a difference. The wind rustled through the cemetery trees. I stood there for a long moment, feeling at peace in a way I never had during my marriage. This was what moving forward looked like. Not forgetting the past, but transforming it into something meaningful. As I walked back to my car, my phone rang. Patricia. Jade, you'll want to hear this. Brady's been arrested. Apparently, he tried to forge documents claiming Victor's will was invalid. Used a notary stamp he stole from somewhere. I closed my eyes. Even now, he couldn't accept the consequences of his actions. What happens now? Fraud charges. Possibly jail time. He's made everything worse for himself. And Elaine? She's cooperating with prosecutors. Throwing Brady under the bus to save herself. Of course she was. That family had never understood loyalty, only self-interest. Keep me updated, I said. But Patricia? I don't want to be involved beyond what's legally necessary. That chapter is closed. Understood. You've moved on. That's the best revenge of all. After hanging up, I sat in my car for a moment. I didn't feel triumphant about Brady's arrest. I didn't feel vindicated or satisfied. I felt nothing. And that was perfect. He was no longer my problem. No longer my concern. Just a man I used to know who made terrible choices and would now face the consequences. I started the car and drove toward my office, where real work waited. People who needed help. Cases that mattered. A purpose that fulfilled me. In the rearview mirror, the cemetery faded from view. Behind me, a grave, a past, a version of myself who'd accepted being small. Ahead, possibility, purpose, and a life I'd built from the ashes of betrayal. Victor had given me more than money or justice. He'd given me an example of how to face the end with integrity. How to choose purpose over bitterness. How to transform pain into something that helps others. That was the real inheritance. And I was going to honor it every single day. For this perfect example of justice served, drop a 7 in the comments if you think they got exactly what they deserved. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from family because they showed you who they really were? What gave you the strength to finally leave? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now.